Hey furniture friends, let's make over this mid-1980s dresser set. I like to redo these because although they're not real popular, they're pretty sturdy. They typically have a laminate top, which means you can paint them and people won't yell at you, and they're kind of fun to do. So let's get this ready for a makeover. First things first, it's been sitting outside for a while, so I gave it a rinse off to get the dust off, then cleaned it really well. I want to change out the hardware, so we're going to go ahead and take off all of these bat wing hardware, as I call them. I know, oops, there went my camera. Okay, get that back in place. I know some people like this hardware, but I don't think it's going to go with the design that I have in mind. And I also removed these little little keyholes just to find out that they were actually completely fake. It's just solid wood underneath them, which is good because that's one less hole to fill and one less repair to worry about. So I decided to skip a few steps because I know you guys have seen me cleaning and sanding furniture before. But what I did is I gave the entire piece a good scuff sanding, cleaned it with a paint prep product, and now I'm putting a black coat of paint on. This color is Tokyo Black by Melange 1. It is an all-in-one paint that has a primer and a top coat, but I still make sure that the piece is well prepared to take the paint, and I'll put on a thin coat to start with, give it a scratch test, and then see how that goes. Also, putting a thin coat on helps me to ensure that there aren't any scratches or dents or anything that I need to fill that can sometimes be hard to see when it's just dark wood, but they'll really show up when you get that first coat of paint on. Oh, and for those of you that said I needed a workbench, take a look. I have a workbench. I actually got this free from my local Buy Nothing group. It was such an amazing score. It's in almost perfect condition and it holds all of my Ryobi tools just perfectly. All right, there's that first coat. Now I'm going to start working on the dresser itself. Now, one of the things that you'll notice sometimes is that while these mid-1980s pieces have a laminate top, they often have real wood bases. So I'm going to check this out. I'm going to go ahead and strip the base, see how it looks, and I might leave it a natural wood color with a painted body. I really think those look really nice, and I think that would be a good direction to go with this. So I'm using a little bit of GreenEz. This is an environmentally friendly stripper. It's soy-based. You just put it on. I'm using a little old paintbrush here. Put it on, leave it for a few minutes. I don't like to let it dry out. I think it's harder to remove. And then I'll be able to wipe that old top coat and stain away and see what's underneath. Okay, it's time to scrape it off. You can see it's coming off pretty easy. It almost looks like wax when I'm rolling it away there. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of this old finish with my scraper, and I might use a wire brush as well to get into some of the crooks and crannies and Once I got everything off that I could, I went ahead and grabbed some acetone and a wire brush, and I'm using this to get into the smaller areas and remove the remainder of the finish. You do want to make sure that you are wearing your respirator or a mask when using acetone, even if you're using it outside, because it does have a very strong smell, and I also wear gloves to protect my hands. I think that this gel stain by Dixie Belle and Tobacco Road will look really good, but I'm going to just test just a little bit of it on one of the ends here, just to get an idea of how it looks before I move forward with doing the entire base. So I'm just putting a little bit on a paper towel, wiping it off, and I think it looks a little bit dark. If you'll notice, it almost looks like the color that it was originally. So I think what I'm going to do is apply a paint wash to lighten the wood and give this a base that will give it a much lighter color. So let's go ahead and get that paint wash ready. Now I had some of this tan paint in a container from a previous project, so I'm just going to go ahead and mix this up, and then I'm going to add some water. I do about 1/4 paint, 3/4 water. Honestly, I don't measure anymore. I just kind of mix it up until I get the consistency that I know will work. And then I'm going to use a chip brush to go ahead and apply this to the base of both the dresser and the nightstand. Okay, now that it's nice and runny, we're going to go ahead and put that on using this little chip brush right here. I found a box of chip brushes, I think there was like 12 of them, for $7 at Harbor Freight the other day, and that's one of the best prices that I found. They usually run about $1 each. So I'm just applying this. You don't have to be particular about how you put it on. You just want to get a nice even coat and make sure that you get the entire piece of wood covered with the paint wash. And then once I have it on there, I'm going to come back over with a rag and just wipe it back off. It's just going to lightly absorb into the paint to lighten it just a tad and prepare it to take the gel stain. So while the base dries, we can go ahead and work on the top. I'm now going to go through the process that I described earlier where I clean it off really well, and then I'm going to gently scuff sand it with some 120 grit sandpaper and then clean it with a product that's designed to prepare wood for painting. While I'm doing this, I want to do a shout out to all of my followers. I really appreciate your watching my videos, leaving me comments, and giving me feedback about whether you like what I'm doing or not. I know not everyone's going to like every piece. In fact, I don't like every piece that I do, but that's part of the fun, is always doing something different. And if you're new to my channel, I would love to get to know you. So please subscribe, give me a like, and let me know in the comments where you're from and what you think of my furniture flipping process. Up, but do notice that I'm always going in the direction that natural wood grain would go. Even though this is a laminate top and doesn't have wood grain, you still want to go in the direction that wood grain would be if it was present, so that in case you get any brush marks, people will think that they are just part of the furniture. And I typically go from side to side. Once I get the entire top coated, you'll see I'll do long strokes all the way across and then clean up around the edges. All right, let's listen to some music and paint. And then you want to repeat that same process on all 3 sides of the dresser. Sometimes people ask me if I do the back of a piece of furniture, and no, I don't, for a number of reasons. One, I don't want to waste product. Oops, I dropped my camera there again. One, I don't want to waste product, and two, most of the time they're pushed up against a wall, so no one's going to see it, and they kind of expect the back to just be a protecting dust board. Now, if it is a piece of furniture that there's a probability that all 4 sides will be seen, or if for some reason the back is just in really bad shape, then I will either paint it or replace it. After the first coat dried on the top, I did go in and fix a few little areas with some wood filler, lightly sanded again, and now I'm going to put a second coat on, which will help cover up the areas that I have repaired. And this is probably going to take about 3 or 4 coats to get a nice deep black and cover all the areas that were repaired. looking good. So you will notice that I lightly sand in between each coat. This is a 400 grit sandpaper. If I don't have any 400 grit sandpaper, brown paper bag also does a really nice job. I'm not trying to remove the paint. What I'm doing is I'm just knocking down any bumps, any ridges, any dust or anything that might have gotten caught in the paint. I just want to remove that before I put on my next coat of paint. And it also gives the next coat of paint something to stick to really help make sure that I have a hard, high quality finish that won't easily scratch or chip off. So I'm just going to wipe this down with a little bit of water, a cloth, and then it's ready for its next and hopefully final coat of paint. So 2 little tricks you're seeing here. One is I do spray with my misting bottle before I put the paint on. That helps keep it from drying too fast. And then after I've brushed it on, I'm going over it very gently with this foam roller. And what that does is it helps remove any of the paintbrush marks. Okay, now it's time to come in and apply our stain. This is the nightstand, but it has gone through the exact same process as the dresser. I stripped, sanded, and then whitewashed the base. And now I'm going to apply the stain. And you'll be able to see it's going to be a much lighter look and color than it was when I did my little sample area. Gel stain is a product that sits on top of the wood and dries. It doesn't need to absorb in it, and that's why it's a really good one to use over paint washes because it's not trying to soak into the paint. I like to use these little sponges from Dollar Tree. I think they're like 6 in a package, and they work really well for applying stain. And then I'll just drop them in a Ziploc baggie in between uses to keep them from drying out. See now, look at this. It's going on a much lighter color. You're not seeing as much of that red that you were before. The white is kind of toning that down. I think it's going to be a fantastic contrast with the black. So I ran into a little snafu. I did not measure the holes of the existing hardware, and of course they were not a standard size. And in fact, the dresser has 2 different sizes of hardware. The smaller drawers have a smaller piece than the larger drawers. So instead of filling and drilling new holes, which would have been very difficult to do at this point because I had already painted the piece, I found these little wood handles on Amazon that are adjustable. So they are a simple wood handle with a black stem that attaches them to the dresser, which you'll see in a moment. And I'm going to give them the same exact treatment that I gave the bases of the furniture. I'm going to go over them with a paint wash, and then once my paint wash is dry, I will apply a coat of the gel stain. So hopefully there'll be a pretty close match in terms of the wood color to the base. And fingers crossed that this looks good because I really do not want to have to go back at this point and repair drawer holes. Okay, the stain has dried, the color looks good, so now we're going to put them together. These are actually a little bit more complicated than I imagined. They have these black, I'm just going to call them stems that attach them to the drawers, and then there's 2 little pieces that you have to put inside of the stem. One's like a little half screw. The other has a little, I don't know what you call it, just a little thing that kind of bites into the wood to hold it in place. So you have to put those in, and then a little skinny Allen wrench came with it. What I'm doing is I got one in place, and then I'm using that one to measure each one that I do after it. You get this little tiny Allen wrench, stick it in there, and tighten it so that it tightens the stems around the wood dowel to keep the dowel from moving. Once I've done one, I'll go back and I'll measure against my model that's already on the dresser to get the second stem in place. And then they should be ready to go onto the dresser just using the screws that came with it. I did find that the screws were a little bit long, so I always keep packs of washers around just in case I need to add a washer or 2 to make sure that my screws fit snugly into my hardware. The last thing that you want are wobbly drawer pulls. So here's where we started with this set. I did pick this up for free, and here's what it looks like now. I think it is just fresh, sleek, modern, and looks so much better than that worn out and tired 1980s set. Please let me know in the comments what you think, and I would love it if you would subscribe, like, and share with your friends. This has been Carmen with Painted and Planted, and I look forward to seeing you next time.